Welcome to today's video. Today I will show you how I like to use Neocolor II crayons to draw/paint landscapes. I know that these crayons are very often used for mixed media. People often use them for quick sketches and as a tool for layering in mixed media work, which is great and which is something I love to use them for as well. But as you've seen in my channel before, if you've been here for a while, you know that I also just love to use Neocolor IIs as on their own, as a only medium to work on something. And previously I've made videos where I paint and draw some flowers, birds, that's kind of topics with these crayons, but today I wanted to show you how I actually use them for full landscape. I used as a reference a picture I took a couple of summers ago. This is actually a place where I go pretty much every summer. It's only a little drive away from where I live, and it's a very beautiful lake scenery. And it's one of those places that really touches my soul, if you can say so. I love it there. So I've been drawing this many times, and today I found an old photo from my phone and I used that as a reference. When I'm using Neocolor IIs for landscapes or as an only medium, I like to first start with scribbling and just using them to kind of block out different areas of the artwork or the picture I'm painting and drawing. So that's what you see me doing here. There's a very long ugly phase whenever you start with this process. So first I just scribble and try to block different color areas and different elements of the landscape here. And I just pretty much intuitively put down color and enjoy the very, very loose process here. The paper I'm using today is Fabriano's hot pressed watercolor paper. You've seen me use this before for Neocolor IIs and it works wonderfully, so I can highly recommend it. I think it's a bit more affordable solution and it works fine with these crayons. So once I've laid down the colors and scribbled and decided what goes where, then I take a large brush and some clean water. And you can see here I'm tilting the paper bad bits, and this is just to get a bit more even layer when I start spreading the color and using water to really take full benefit of the water-soluble crayons. So when you use a lot of water and you tilt the paper a bit, you can get a really nice even layer of color. And that's kind of my tip number one today, that be bold and try new things and use this as you would any kind of watercolor or water-soluble medium. So try out new ways and techniques, and it really can make a lot of difference. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to use a lot of water to take full benefit of the water-soluble crayons and block different color areas on the paper. You can see here that at this point, I'm not paying too much attention to details. So I know pretty much what's going where, and I can use the brush to guide the color a bit. And for example, here where I'm working on the kind of big green area, which is lots of trees, I can use the brush strokes already to build that base layer in such a way that you can kind of get an idea what's going to be there. But other than that, at this point, I'm just spreading color around to get that wonderful, nice base layer of colors, and then I can start adding details on top of that in the next stage. Next I will start adding some shadows, and you can see me here using dark blue, which is it's so useful. I mean, obviously these are trees, it's a distant forest, but I don't have a very dark green in my set of Neocolor IIs, so I will use dark blue to give that kind of gold tone, cool toned shadows, the distant trees. And this is one technique that I like to use, so I would encourage you to be bold with your color choices and also grab those crayons that are not the obvious choice for certain places. And actually, blue is the perfect color for any kind of shadow or more cool or distant areas in your landscapes, so be bold with that. You can see me here then scribbling a bit of trees. So obviously there are lots of trees in a distant forest, and you can't go into too much detail. But what I'm doing here is that I'm trying to build the impression of lots of trees there. And by benefiting from the base layer, which is a bit lighter, I'm going to leave some of that visible. Then I'm going to add those mid-tones in the greens, different greens. And then I will use the dark blue, and later I will also use Payne's grey to add some of the shadowy parts to the forest. So this is how you can tackle those areas, which can be quite intimidating if you have lots of trees or any kind of a very detailed part of a landscape. And you can see me here taking the brush, and with small brush strokes I'm just dropping water here and there, and also I'm leaving some of the crayons not activated, so that way I can have different textures and build that depth to the distant forest. And I really like how it turned out. I think it looks very, very much what I was after. And I'm adding here some more details, some more dark tones, and you can see that I'm not activating all of the crayons. And that's the kind of the beauty of any kind of water-soluble crayons or pencils. You can use them in so many different ways. So some layers I'm activating, some parts I'm using water to build that more layered or kind of color mixed feeling. But then some parts I'm leaving inactivated, and that way I can have those more kind of sharp shadows and details. Here you can then see me use another technique where I am adding the colors to this palette, which has a bit of rough surface, so it's easy to add some crayons there. And then I use it like watercolor. And I sprayed the paper a bit so that it's wet, so I'm kind of using a wet on wet technique here. And why I like to do this is that the part I'm painting here is stone, so it's a rock. And I think this way, kind of using wet on wet technique with watercolor, you can get really nice, kind of very realistic layering and mixing of colors. The kind you can see when you go to a cliff and you see those beautiful textures and colors that different rocks and cliffs can have. And yeah, that's pretty much what I'm doing. So I'm just dotting color and adding it there and trying to build the shadows and different tones that we have there. And then I'm also adding crayons dry on wet, so the surface is wet and I'm adding crayons there. And these can be a bit more difficult to activate once you add them on a wet surface, but that also brings different kind of texture, and again gives it a bit new tone and new texture. And that's what I really like about this crayon. So there are so many ways to use this, and again, just encouraging everyone to be bold and test and see what works for you. now it's time to tackle that scary part, which are those more close-up trees. And it can be quite difficult to paint some sort of forest close by. And what I do here, and this is my usual technique, is that I forget about the trees. I forget about the plants that I can see, and I start painting shadows. I start looking at the scenery or the picture I'm using as a reference and see where are the shadows, where are the different kind of colors and tones that you can see, and where is shade, where is the light actually hitting. And this is the best way to start tackling these more complex topics. So whenever you are unsure how to start painting something, start looking at different shapes and shadows and try to distance yourself from what you think it should look like. I use that if you're unsure where to start looking at different shadows, shapes, colors. Start building and drawing and painting some texture instead of the actual object. And that's what you can see me doing here. So I'm both adding, again, using these more like a watercolor. So adding the color to a palette and adding it to the paper with a brush. But then I really like using these crayons on a wet surface. So I have the kind of still a bit damp surface there where I've used it as watercolor, and then I start adding crayon on top of that. So let's just keep working this way, and you can see me adding layers, building colors, building those shadows, and adding some details as we go along and enjoy the process. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for joining me today as I painted and draw this little landscape with Neocolor II crayons. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please do like and subscribe. That really helps my small channel grow. As you know, Neocolor IIs are one of my favorite mediums, and if you'd like to see some specific topics or like to hear more about certain tips and tricks I've shared in this video, please leave me a comment and I will try my best to make a future video about those topics. So thank you again for joining me today, and I hope to see you in my next video. Until then, please enjoy your own art journey, and bye for now.